If you tuned in yesterday, you probably remember that we were talking about my new book, Convulsion, the Structure of American History. Convulsion has half a dozen chapters, but it has, we're in the fifth convulsion now, and the fifth convulsion has 5 parts. It has a financial disaster, a political disaster, a natural disaster in the form of COVID-19, a climate disaster, and the 400-plus-year-old racial disaster. All of these disasters are coming to a head at the same time, creating a convulsion. Convulsions in American history take place about every 80 years. I happen to have been born in 1943 in the middle of the World War II, and that was 77 years ago. You go back another 80 years from the middle of World War II and you wind up in the Civil War, which was the mother of all convulsions. And 7 years before the Battle of Gettysburg, they declared independence, they being the colonists in 1876 or 1776. And there was one big convulsion before that called the King Philip's War. Now, if you're an astute student of history, and I expect you to be, just in order for your general citizenship, each of these convulsions involves an enormous war. King Philip's War, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Depression, which led us into World War II, and now we're in this convulsion. We'll be really lucky if we don't have a really big war. One of the other characteristics of a convulsion is that it tends to create great leaders. In order to be a great leader, you have to have something great to do. Nobody cares about William Henry Harrison or Millard Fillmore or any of these presidents who didn't do anything. Our attention is focused on Washington, Lincoln, and Roosevelt, the 3 presidents for the 3 great convulsions since we became a nation state, so to speak. This convulsion may produce a great president. We will see how the people, the powers that be, deal with their problems, and their problems are enormous everywhere. I mean, the Senate, which sits in the throat of American culture and chokes it to death, just went home for Labor Day weekend, 3 weeks early, without any kind of stimulus bill or any kind of unemployment insurance or any kind of help for state governments who can't go into debt like they can and have to meet payrolls. This depression that we're headed into is going to be terrific. For some people, there are opportunities around. The people who run hedge funds, you ask them what they're doing with their money, they're holding on to it. They're holding on to cash because the bottom is going to fall out of these prices. One of the things that happens with this convulsion, it's also happening at the same time as the 4th big price collapse in Western civilization. The first price collapse, you probably remember, was in 1348 when the Black Death hit Europe. Came up out of the Black Sea, and they called it the Black Death because it was the same color as water, and it killed somewhere between 40 and 60% of the people in Europe. Just for talking purposes, I'll say half the people in Europe. Suppose you're in business and you lose half your market. Does the economy collapse? Absolutely. Do prices go down? Definitely. They went down again at the Renaissance in 1492, exactly at the same time that Columbus, quote, discovered America. Although America had never really been lost. The Europeans didn't know about it. You know, they were busy finding all kinds of stuff. And then the next big price collapse happened in 1815, which was at the end of the Revolutionary War. And it also was 1815 was the time when Hackett Fisher, there was a price collapse then, but Oswald Spengler, the author of Der Untergang des Abendlandes, known to English speakers as The Decline of the West, that's the moment he figured the decline of the West set in, with Wellington's victory over Napoleon at Waterloo. From that time on, Western civilization has been going sideways, and trust me, it's still going sideways. Here we are, you know, people rioting in 200 cities across the country, trying to get rid of the police departments who have a lock on their unions, a lock on the city councils and the mayors. You have the Federal Reserve has dumped several $1 trillion into the system to prop up the price of stocks, but none of the money gets out to the people who might actually use it. And then there's the political disaster, of course, which we have the Orange Menace is circling the Earth on his last 80 days with David Niven in a hot air balloon. And he's going to come crashing down really hard soon because Biden and Harris are going to run the table. And then we will have a Democratic administration. We might actually get some legislation passed, because one of the reasons why the United States goes through a convulsion every 80 years is stuff builds up and it won't budge. You know, it's not a simple thing like a legislative process like the San Andreas Fault, when you get two faults slipping alongside of each other. Gradually, what you got is the kind of fault system we have off the Pacific coast. It happens every 300 years. Actually, it's every 240 years, and it's been 300 years since it happened. The plates are mashed against each other really solidly, and then they go like this. And then the Earth, that is to say North America, goes 200 feet west all of a sudden. And it makes buildings really shaky. And it breaks pipelines and gas lines and highways and freeways and bridges. The west side from Vancouver to Arcadia, California is going to be a royal mess when the earthquake happens. I mean, one of the other things that happens with these convulsions and price collapses is big outbreaks of disease. We talked earlier about the Black Death. This one is called the Orange Death. It's not Ronald Reagan, what's his name? I can't even remember his name. The Orange Menace. The Orange Menace, who pretended that this COVID-19 was just going to go away like a miracle. Man, it's just like the flu, you know, it's like it's nothing, don't worry. You know, even his friends go to Tulsa with him and rally and then go home and die. You know, I mean, you got to be serious about government. You know, I can joke about it because I'm related directly to Dick Gregory and Lenny Bruce. You know, I mean, I have to be able to joke about it, but the president should not be a joker, and he should definitely not be a TV actor. And he should definitely not be the son of an immigrant married to an immigrant and complaining about immigrants. He should pay attention, but he can't pay attention because he's illiterate and unteachable. That's one of the problems of going through a convulsion with somebody like that. You know, I mean, it could be really rough. Anyway, the book will be done eventually. Maybe I'll get a big publisher this time, maybe a fat advance. You might see me on TV again or hear me on the radio. You know, I could break out of the YouTube system and go viral, as they say, like the rest of the viruses. But keep it in mind, it's a convulsion and it's playing near you.